Welcome to the deep dive. In today's world, our digital footprint, it's not just growing, it's what's exploding. We're generating just an incredible amount of digital personal data, especially somewhere like India, right? Such a dynamic, fast digitizing market. But here's the real challenge. How do you use all that data for growth, for innovation, but also really protect individual privacy? It's tricky. A real balancing act, and India's just brought in some pretty significant legislation to try and manage it. So our deep dive today is all about India's Digital Personal Data Protection Act of 2023, the DPDP Act. And this isn't just, another regulation. People are calling it India's first comprehensive data privacy law. It seems set to really change how digital personal data gets handled there. Our mission, then, let's unpack this. We want to cut through the legal speak, understand what this act really is, who does it affect, what are the key parts, and crucially, what are the penalties if you don't comply? How does it impact businesses? And how does it impact you? We're aiming for those aha moments, making the complex stuff click.
Exactly. And it's a really pivotal piece of legislation. What's fascinating, I think, is how it signals this major shift in India's digital approach. It lines up with that global trend towards stronger data protection, definitely. But it's also, specifically built for India's unique digital environment. It's quite strategic.
Okay, strategic. So let's peel back that first layer then, the DPDP Act itself. For someone maybe just getting up to speed, what's the fundamental change here? What was the big gap it was trying to fill?
Right. So at its core, the DPDP Act, passed back in August 2023, it's really about setting the rules for collecting, processing, storing, all that handling of digital personal data. Think of it like the first proper rule book for this digital age in India. Before this, things were much more fragmented. There wasn't one clear law covering everything. And the scope is, well, it's incredibly broad. It applies to all digital personal data, whether you collect it online straight away, or even if it starts offline, like on paper, but then gets digitized.
Oh, interesting. So if I fill out a paper form at my bank and they scan it.
Exactly. Once it's scanned and stored digitally, that data falls under the Act. And it covers both Indian companies and, importantly, foreign companies offering goods or services in India.
Okay. And who enforces it?
That's the job of the Data Protection Board of India, the DPBI. They're the regulator. A really central idea is consent. It has to be explicit, informed consent from the user before you collect their data. That's fundamental now. And another critical point, limited use. You can only use the data for the specific reason you collected it for, nothing else. That really creates a much clearer boundary, doesn't it? It shifts things from, data's out there to be used towards data access as a privilege granted for one reason.
It does make the change very clear. Okay, so with such a wide scope, who's actually responsible for making sure they comply? The Act uses the term data fiduciaries. Who exactly is that?
Yeah, good question. Essentially, a data fiduciary is any organization, any entity really, that decides why and how digital personal data is processed. So that casts a really wide net. We're talking IT service providers, SaaS platforms, definitely e-commerce businesses, ed tech, health tech firms, also financial institutions, banks, insurance companies, and even government departments. It pretty much covers anyone handling personal data digitally.
Right, covers all the bases. And I remember reading about a special category, too, for those handling massive amounts of data, really sensitive stuff, significant data fiduciaries. SDFs.
Precisely, SDF.
What extra burdens do they carry?
Yeah, for SDF, the bar is higher. It's a significant step up in terms of governance. First, they must appoint a data protection officer, a DPO. That's a specific person responsible for overseeing compliance, talking to the regulators, that sort of thing. And beyond that, they have to conduct regular data protection impact assessments, DPIAs.
What are those?
Nope.
Yeah. What are those, essentially?
They're basically detailed risk assessments. You have to proactively identify potential privacy risks in your data processing activities and figure out how to mitigate them. So it's not just about adding a role like the DPO, it's embedding data privacy deep into how the company operates, into its risk management. It makes data protection a core responsibility, almost like financial accountability.
I see. That definitely elevates data privacy within the organization. So, okay, let's bring it down to the practical level. For an average business and for us as individuals, what do these key rules actually mean day to day?
Well, I think it boils down to maybe three main areas. First, for businesses, consent. Managing consent the right way. It has to be specific, informed, and freely given. So no more confusing language or hidden clauses. Users need to genuinely understand what they're agreeing to. The Act mentions consent managers' tools to help streamline this, make it easy for users to give consent, and just as importantly, easy for them to withdraw it whenever they want.
Withdrawal is key too, like a dashboard maybe.
Yeah, potentially. Imagine seeing everywhere you've given consent and being able to revoke it easily. That's the kind of user control the Act envisages. Second, for you, the individual. The Act calls you a data principal, and you get significant new rights. You have the right to access the personal data a company holds about you, the right to ask for corrections if it's wrong, or even deletion in many cases. There's also data portability, the right to get your data and potentially move it to another service provider, kind of like porting your mobile number.
Okay.
And crucially, if things go wrong, you have the right to complain directly to the Data Protection Board. It really empowers the individual, gives them much more control over their own digital identity.
That does sound empowering. And the third area?
The third is for businesses, again, understanding their duties as a data fiduciary. This goes beyond just getting consent. It means being transparent, keeping data accurate, using it only for the purpose you stated, implementing strong security measures to protect the data. That's a big one. And if there is a breach, notifying the authorities and the affected individuals promptly.
Wow, okay. It definitely sounds like a major overhaul.
Hmm.
So, knowing all that,
Mhm.
what's the actual roadmap for a business? How do they ensure they're compliant? It must feel pretty complex, especially if you're a smaller company.
It is a journey, no doubt, but there are some essential steps, maybe 6 key things to focus on. First, you absolutely need a comprehensive data audit. You have to know what personal data you're collecting, where it's coming from, where it's stored, who you share it with. You need that map.
Right, get the lay of the land first.
Exactly. Second, update your privacy policy. It needs to be clear, easy to understand, explaining why you collect data, what the user's rights are, how consent works. No more legalese.
Good luck with that one. Okay, clear policies.
Yeah. Third, implement those consent management tools we talked about. Make opt-in clear. Make viewing and revoking consent simple for the user. Fourth, train your employees. This can't just sit with the legal team. Everyone who handles data needs to understand their responsibilities, the internal processes for handling user requests, things like that.
Makes sense. People are often the weak link.
They can be. Fifth, if you qualify as an SDF, you must appoint that DPO. That designated contact point is crucial. And finally, number 6, establish a solid data breach response plan. You need to know what to do when something goes wrong, how to monitor systems, who to notify, how quickly.
Okay, that's a clear list. Audit, policy, consent tools, training, DPO if needed, and breach plan.
Exactly. And, if we look at the bigger picture, doing these things isn't just about avoiding fines. It's fundamental to building trust with your customers. It actually strengthens your business in the long run.
That's a good point. Trust is everything online.
Mhm.
Now, how does this play out across different sectors? Does it hit everyone the same way? Or are there maybe common misunderstandings you see businesses having?
The impact definitely varies. Take IT and SaaS companies, for example. They really need to focus on making sure any third-party vendors or processors they use are also compliant. They also need to build those consent workflows right into their platforms, make them scalable, automated.
Right, because their platforms handle data for others.
Precisely. E-commerce platforms, on the other hand, their big challenge is clear disclosure at every point. Login, browsing, definitely checkout.
Yeah.
And offering really easy ways for users to opt out or request data deletion.
Okay. What about sectors like healthcare or finance? They handle super sensitive data.
Yeah, healthcare and fintech firms are almost certainly going to be classified as SDFs because of the sensitive nature of health and financial data. So for them, those DPIAs, the impact assessments, become crucial. And they'll need really robust advanced security controls. The bar is naturally higher.
And what about startups? Is there any kind of break for smaller businesses just starting out? That's often a misconception, right?
That is a very common misconception. There's no blanket exemption for small businesses or early-stage startups in the DPDP Act.
Really? None at all?
Not explicitly, no. The obligations apply based on the activity processing digital personal data, not necessarily the size of the company initially. But here's the thing. For a startup, being proactive about DPDP compliance can actually be a huge advantage. It can boost investor confidence, build credibility with early customers. It shows you're serious about governance from day one.
Interesting perspective. So
Yeah.
compliance as a potential plus point for startups. Okay, the stakes are clearly high then for everyone. Let's talk penalties. What happens if businesses just don't comply or can't?
Well, this is where it gets really serious. The penalties are designed to have teeth. They are substantial.
How substantial?
Okay, for example, failing to take reasonable security measures to prevent a data breach. The potential fine is up to 250 crore rupees.
Wow. Okay, 250 crore. That's roughly what, 30 million US dollars?
Around that, yes, it's significant. Not reporting a breach to the board and affected users in a timely manner, that could be up to 200 crore rupees.
Okay, still huge.
And even things like not honoring user rights. Ignoring requests for access or deletion can attract penalties up to 50 crore rupees. The Data Protection Board has the power to investigate, hold hearings, and impose these fines. It really underlines the financial risk of noncompliance. These aren't just minor penalties.
No, definitely not just a slap on the wrist. Okay, so as we sort of wrap up this deep dive, the big takeaway seems to be following the DPDP Act isn't just about dodging those massive fines. It sounds like it's much more fundamental,
Yeah.
about building trust with consumers, future-proofing your business in this digital-first world.
Absolutely. That's the core message, I think. If you connect it to the bigger picture, compliance isn't just a cost center. It's an investment in building a more responsible, a more trustworthy digital ecosystem. And ultimately, that benefits everyone, businesses and individuals alike.
So thinking about that, what does this all mean for you listening right now? As you go about your day, using different apps, different services online, maybe take a moment to think about how this DPDP Act might be quietly reshaping their privacy policies in your experience. How much more control might you have now? And what does this signal for the future of digital trust? Not just in India, obviously, but globally. We're seeing more and more countries bring in these kinds of comprehensive data protection laws. It's definitely a fascinating space to watch. We hope this deep dive gave you some useful insights and maybe sparked some curiosity to keep exploring how these rules are shaping our increasingly connected world.